Don't, don't. Hey, yeah. Don't. Hey, yeah.
What's goody, everybody? It's the As a Black Man podcast. It's your boy Mel Simmons. You already know what it is. Got my man Joe Barnhart. What up, bro?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good, bro.
You excited about today's show, man? You excited about it?
Hey, yo, anytime I can spend my boy Ty on the phone or in person, I love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I feel you, man. I feel you. So we do got a special guest today, man. That got me a little hype. We got my man Tyler. He coming through. He said he 18. He looked about 30, but he he said he 18. So we gonna go with that. We gonna trust him for his word. You know what I mean? But I was like, all right, bro. I hear you. You know what I mean? I hear you, but he said he 30. He said he 30. I mean 18. So we're gonna go with that. Tyler, man, what's up, man? Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited
No
about the
problem.
show,
Thank you for
man.
having me.
Yeah, we about to get it. Let's go ahead and get that thing started, man. Look, as a
Let's
black
go.
man, hold on for a second. As a black man, I know what it's like to be told that I'm not good enough. I know how it feels to feel alone. No, I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm not a rapper, a ball player, a celebrity. I'm a human being. As a black man, I'm told to man up when I have feelings, ignore when I speak my pain. Hopeful that things will change, yet disappointed they often remain the same. As a black man, I am strong because I have to be. This life, a gobble up the weak, and the pain and trauma that I've been through has humbled me to become a better me. It's time, as black men, that we stand our ground. We speak our truth. We go after what we want, regardless of the pain we've been through. We quit for no one and inspire others to be themselves, to become greater. We owe it to ourselves as black men. You feel me, Tyler? What's up? So
Let's go, bro.
we got special guest today, man. We got special guest today, my man Tyler, bro. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and why you wanted to come on to the podcast this morning, man.
A little bit about me. I stay in the community, and a lot of what I do is for the youth and for other people just in the community in general. And so I go around, I did write and publish a book when I was 13. So then from that, I went and been speaking, a lot of speaking engagements, had the opportunity to not only network for myself, but then it's given me access, to so many people that I didn't have access to before that I could impact in their life and make an impact on them. And today I wanted to jump on today's podcast just to, get a little insight, get that youth perspective, because I know, y'all do know and y'all are invested in the community. But it's sometimes it's certain things, that you get, with a certain age group, so that age gap, and I think that's something, that I bring to the table. So I just
Right.
wanted to share my perspective, get that out there. And so that's why I'm here, just ready to get it kicked off, whatever y'all got for me.
Awesome.
Mel, so Tyler, when I met Tyler, he was younger than he had no mustache, right? But he always had he always had a lot of energy, right? And his
Right.
father holds him, to a higher expectation. I like you, kind of tough for that dude, but he never bit, bro. You know what I mean? And to see him excel from the time he wrote this book to where he's at now is like, wow, what's next for him? You know what I mean?
Right.
He's going to graduate high school and like Obama better look out. You know what I mean? Because
right.
because the way Tyler presents himself, the way he talks, the way he connects to people follow him, man. They follow him. You know what I
That's
mean?
good, man. So, Tyler, what inspired you to write a book, and what was the book about?
For me, it was just something that just came natural. I was just kind of sitting there with nothing to do, and so it was just something creative that just flowed from me. And the biggest thing, I know that a lot of other people do the same thing, but the biggest push was to just finish it out and follow through, because I know a few of my classmates, we all sort of were together and working on things and collaborating, but they never really push to finish their work throughout and actually take it to that very next level to get it published. And that's sort of why I wrote it. Just the creative juices, and the community around me. So going off of them, and we were just flowing, and that's how I ultimately came to write my own story. And then, and I actually got a copy right here if y'all want to see it. The Rift. So it's actually a little sci-fi. So it's about a kid. He moves to Florida, right? And then he finds a teleporter in the closet of his new home. So then throughout the story, he's trying to clash through what's going on in there and reality at the same time. So that's just a little bit about it. It's on Amazon too, $7.99.
There you
And
go.
it's
Self
under
promote,
book
baby. Self
$3.99.
promote. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh man, so that's what's up, man. Give you a big round of applause, bro.
Thank
Got your own book before 18, man. That's awesome, bro. So I'm excited, and yeah, I want to check that. I want to check that book out, man. So
you.
yeah,
All right, for
I,
sure.
we're excited to have you on the podcast, man. So going back to like the stuff that you're doing in the community, man. What are you doing?
So a lot of what I do, and Joe probably knows, is that Omega Sci-Fi. I'm involved in that, with Sunday Breakfast Mission.
oh.
Uh oh. A little hater raid going on over here.
I know, little hate. No, but it's all love. But through them, Toys for Tots as well, and then Open Hands, going around and giving out Thanksgiving baskets and also Christmas, care packages for families that are less fortunate, just putting those together, going out and deliver those, doing that in the Salvation Army where I went to after school. So it's kind of funny because I grew up there and I'm still always sort of going back, being a mentor, being a tutor for kids, just stopping by when I can, and them just seeing me as someone who went there at their age, it does have an impact and then that's sort of how they listen to me, and, take instruction from me, is just having that relatability, being with them and connecting to them at their age right now. And then also right now, currently, and Joe probably knows, with the Black Student Union, that's one of the biggest things that I've really started doing now in my school. I founded that in 2018, and then through that, just been serving my high school population now as well. And then also putting on public events. Actually, last night we just had our Greek Night Step Showcase. We had a lot of the Greek boys come out and stuff, and so it was a really good night, really great turnout. And that's just another component of service that I've been doing within the community, in addition to, coming to schools to speak as well, just to give a little motivation for them. So that's most of the things that I've been doing as it pertains to community service.
So the funny thing is that Mel, when we was growing up, we didn't think about community service. We didn't think about giving
Mm,
back to the youth. We didn't think about anything. Like we thought it was kind of like selfish, right? So to have a young man that puts himself second and the community first is phenomenal, right? And
mm,
so his methodology is like he's not trying to gain notoriety from it, right? He's trying to give back to show the kids in society, like, you know what? I've been here where you are now. Look where I'm at now. With him going back to the foundation where he started off at and mentoring those
mm,
kids, like that's phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? And I applaud you for that as well because we need role models on our level as individuals. Like I'm 46 years old, I need somebody my age, above me and
mm,
below me, right? So now you got the
Right.
kids that are at your age that you can witness. I mean, well, witness to, yeah, you can talk to as well. And you got your,
right.
people like myself that and your dad to talk to you, and then you got people below you too. So last year we were at this show. There's a lot of kids that came up to you, talk to you, who wasn't in high school, middle school, right? How do you take to
Mm.
that right there? And when the younger kids come to you, that's not in the same grade level as you, how do you take that questions and that connectivity that they try to get with you?
And also, Tyler, can you speak a little bit louder, please?
Yeah, I can. My fault.
That's an
So
omega, no.
so the way that, when younger people approach me with questions, and sort of how I take that is mostly just relatability. Like you won't open up or be comfortable with someone that you feel that you don't relate to as much. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's always, and that's where you sort of have to make yourself humble, but then also show like that you are a human, and that's the biggest thing, is just not stooping, getting down on the level, but making yourself open, because and honesty is really what people appreciate when you show them your scars and how human you are, and
Mm,
just not always trying to show off this persona that you are just perfect, and that everything that they see that's good that you're doing, that's really prominent, that's not you 24/7, because the truth is it's not. And so just showing that relatability, I think, is really how I I can connect to people that are younger that come to me with certain questions. And so that's the biggest thing that I try to do in doing that. And
right.
for the most part, it works, because then you just get to know them, and you get positive energy, and it's radiating. And then that's when the serious conversations start to happen, where you can take that time to educate, and uplift. And it's not just about, um, just connecting, and but you're making a relationship as you go. And that's sort of how I do it, is you go along the way, and it's not going to happen instantaneous like that. But for the most part, if you take the time to craft a relationship, it'll have an effect on
Right.
someone, especially someone that's younger.
Okay.
So Joe, you
Yeah.
sure my man ain't 30?
I'm trying to tell you, man.
He
Like,
got a lot of insight over here, bro. Yeah.
I'm trying to tell
He
you, man.
dropping
Like,
some gems out here.
he's so dynamic, bro. Like, it's just amazing, bro. I love to buy from his dad and keep him as my kid. You know what I'm saying? Because his philosophy in life is just
Mm,
it's out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
What you said is so true, man. When you're building relationships and you're being that mentor or that person that somebody can look up to, showing the human
hmm
side of things, which is why Joe and I are
Yeah.
so honest on this podcast with what we're doing. When you show the human side of things and show that you're going through things too, you help getting
hmm
that people to open up a little bit more, because a lot of the times with the stuff that we're dealing with, even mental health or school related issues or anything that we're
Right.
dealing with, sometimes we feel isolated and we feel like
hmm
this stuff is only impacting us and only happening to us. And you're like, wait a second, bro, I'm 18 and I already done been through a lot of this stuff that you guys are going
right,
through. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then
right.
I'm 30. I just turned 30 this week, and I'm like, yo, I already been through
Happy
everything Tyler been
birthday.
through. Thank you, thank
Right.
you, thank you. Happy birthday, baby.
Happy
And
birthday.
my man
Yeah.
Joe, he in his 40s, and he like, Mel, I be complaining to Joe all the time. And he like, nah, bro, you gonna be all right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it just goes uphill, and you know what I mean? And Joe, he talks to me sometimes, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Give him some good insight, man. So we need that. And I think us as people, we have to be open-minded enough to listen
hmm
to people that are younger than us, because you can really learn a lot. And that's why we wanted to bring you onto the show, because I don't know what it's like to be in high school. I haven't been in high school in
Oh,
10.
wow.
Yeah. It's strange.
You know what I mean? I don't know what that's
hmm
like. So when I try to communicate with the 18, 15, 14-year-old, you know what I mean? I'm gonna be out of touch. You know what I mean?
hmm
They, I had people hitting me up, some of my younger folks, and they like, yo, this rapper got killed. I ain't even never hear a boy, you know what I
Right.
mean?
You ain't even
They
know what you're
like, he a
talking about.
legend. I'm like, yo, he a legend. You know what I mean? So when you're a little bit older, you get a little bit out of touch, man. So we glad that you come on to the show, man.
mm
So I got a couple of questions for you as like your experience in high school, man. How has
mm.
our mental health like been like at your school? Like where kids are going through so many issues, parent issues, financial issues. A lot of kids, they don't even got money for lunches and stuff like that. Like, how are you guys able to get it together and build each other up, and work on that mental health? Is that like a concern? Do you guys talk about that in school, or you know what I mean?
See, um, well, for my school personally, it's 50-50. So the makeup is pretty diverse in terms of high schools in general. But the one thing that I will say, it still does cater, to the majority, when it comes to mental health, and a lot of that, because like the resources that they use, I can see how sometimes it'll work, but for our people, it's not necessarily the best thing to use. Like they'll use the mindfulness practice, which is good, but sometimes that's not how everyone handles stress, and
Mhm.
so I think um like taking a different outlet. And I know for my school, a lot of guys, black males, sports is that outlet, and that's really how we get to breathe. But then also in doing that, for some of the guys that are like in the advanced classes, then they gotta survive. They have to be dynamic enough to survive and sort of maneuver in both environments. And then through that, it is causing them to sort of be unsure about their identity and like, well, which side do I go on to? Like who am I sort of? And that's one thing that sort of comes up, when that happens. Um, and so as far as that aspect, you know, a lot of us we don't really have that space outside of like at lunch sitting down with each other just rapping to know that we are together and support and uplift each other and just really be there for one another. But outside of that, I really think sports is the biggest avenue because I know for me, playing lacrosse, a lot of guys, a lot of black guys coming out and playing the sport is really their first time and they haven't been exposed to it. And so for me, being in my third year, just being in that locker room and being able to, rub off on them just while we're going through drills and stuff,
Mhm.
I think that's really where we can uplift each other and say, yo, like I know what you're going through. I was you at one point, but like now I'm someone that can be here for you in this process and really help and uplift you. And so I think that's where our, mental health strengths and come in is through sports. But as far as like the school environment, it does a good job, but I think that that's really where we sort of let our guard down about mental health,
Mhm.
in a sense, if that makes sense to you.
Right. So going back to the mindfulness practice,
Mm.
who orchestrates that at the school, and how do the kids get to take advantage of that?
Well, that is just teachers, like sometimes they do it when you come into a classroom or whenever they think students need a break. But that's not all. That doesn't always happen, depending on who the teacher is, or the subject or anything. And that's just sort of time to just disconnect from work, devices, everything, and then just sit down, meditate, and reflect. And I think that could be used, as a better alternative instead of, sending someone the hallway when they're obviously just gonna be on their phone or distracted by something else. And so I think that's when it can be useful. And but again, it depends on the teacher and how they take advantage of that practice.
Now, I would say too, I know his principal very personally, and
Hmm.
she's a monster, right? So she
Yeah.
has the heart the size of the world, and her arms is the size of two worlds put together. Like her passion is for kids to progress in life, be educated, and she's all about social life also. Um, so to hear that the teachers are involved, but I know she's involved as well, and
Mm.
like Curry's a monster. Like
Hmm.
and she's the person I talk to when I have issues at town. You know what I mean? Because she's just full of wealth, and knowledge, and she knows where
Yeah.
to put you. She has the finger to point you in the direction you need to go to get
Right.
you in further assistance. So for the school he goes to is it's a nice school. Mount
Hmm.
what's the name of school? Mount what? Mount something. What's the
Well,
name
I
of
would
Mount?
Mount
say,
Pleasant. Yeah.
Mount Pleasant. Yeah, Mount Pleasant. Yeah,
it's
Mount Pleasant.
interesting. When I was going to school, there was no such thing as mindfulness practices and stuff like that, and the
Yeah.
teachers wasn't concerned about that. Is there anything else surrounded by mental health besides the mindfulness practice that they do for the school? How much is that kind of like a thought process for our youth? Because when I was growing up, like Joe said, I did volunteer work and stuff like that for like my church, but mental
Hmm.
health was never really a focus because I would tell my parents I had was depressed and stuff like that. Nobody really cared back then. But I wish like there was programs out there that kids were able to go to their counselor if they needed to talk, or they had like therapists at the school if people needed that kind of assistance. What other programs do they have besides just the mindfulness practice at the school, if any?
Well, they do have school therapists, school psychiatrists, and a lot of students I notice have really close ties to counselors, which is really good because then they're taking advantage of their counselors just as someone to be there to listen to them. And I think really just going off what you said about mindfulness and mental health awareness not really being there when you were in school. I think that's just, that just is a generational difference. And now, like a lot of people in education are starting to see that, mental health is important. And then also, it's just the competitive nature, of school right now is like, high school is deciding basically the rest of your life. And so I think in seeing that and how nasty and gritty that can get and how it can deteriorate someone, I think that is really where the mindfulness and the mental health awareness sort of comes in. And I think that's why now we have it, and this is really something that is being noticed and being put to good use, and which I'm thankful for and I'm happy for, because I know there's times when I just go from taking a test in one class and then we just going right into it in the next one, but then the teacher says, "Yo, we're gonna stop, take 10-15 minutes," and it sort of does help, because then you don't have that stress built up in you, and it's not affecting not only the way that you're learning but also how you're feeling, because that can really change the rest of your day.
Right.
Depending on how you feeling up there.
So let me ask you this question. You said that school is very competitive now. Do you think that's because of the nature of sports, or because of how college has changed now to where when I was in high school, like it wasn't competitive at all? You know what I mean? If you were a football scholarship, of course you played good, but now I see it's more competitive on the academic side as well. To where kids are fighting to get scholarships now, and of course with the economy being kind of tight, like, do you think that's what made school competitive, or do you think just the sign of the times made school competitive?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I think a lot of the competitiveness is on the academic side, and how people are really fighting for those college spots, especially where we're at in Delaware. It's a small state, and there some schools are only taking X number of people from this small state, and so you have people constantly thinking, well, I have to be better than whoever this is. Don't even know who the person is or who you're competing with.
Right.
And I think that, especially like as when these schools put out that they only taking these number of students, they have all these applications. For some people, that goes to the heart, and is sort of like taken as a reflection of who they are as a person. And
Right.
so that I think sometimes it's being taken personal is where the competitiveness comes from. Is students taking where they go to school as something, as a personal reflection on who they are as a person,
Right.
which isn't necessarily true, and is something that I think is really deterring and just making this process ugly. And that's part of why you seeing that self-doubt a lot of times within our community, and people saying that I'm not gonna, just because there's this sort of voice in the back of their heads that's always pushing this.
Right. So Tyler, I got a follow-up question to that. Like, how is the mental of our young black men as far as like going to college or going to trade school? Like, and so many people are going to college now, getting a 4-year degree, and still having trouble finding work, having trouble finding the amount of income that they
So
want.
I think for
Did we get a freeze? We got a freeze. So let's look at this though, Mel. So I went to high school in the 80s, in the 90s, right? And for me to go to school was all about what school I want to go to, right?
Right.
I knew I wasn't good enough in sports, so I figured, I try academically. But the hit amount of stress that he's going through at a high schooler now, and I'm thinking like when my daughter at 7 now get to high school, like how's it going to be? You know what I mean? Like, how would you have did this in school? Like, how would your mindset have been if you know that there's only a certain amount of kids in the school gonna get scholarships, a certain amount of kids in the state gonna get scholarships? Like, so you got the stress of being a kid, you have the stress of academic, you have the stress of friendship, you know what I mean? And now you're trying to go to college, which everybody says you gotta do. You gotta go to college so you can advance yourself in life so you could be, this great person. Like, that's a lot of stress on a kid. You know what I mean? That's not including what the mom and dad go put on. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. For me, when I was making that transition from high school to college, I thought I wanted to do FBI and stuff like that, and I got really bad advice from, counselors or whatever to take criminal justice, which I ended up finding out would have been a worthless degree. So I just ended up leaving and become a police officer. Looking back at it now that I'm older, I would have just stayed in, just got my bachelor's and been done with it. Because now, I'm leaving some money on the table here without that bachelor's degree. But even, this is back in 2008 when I was going to college, that was the beginning of like this, college ain't all it's cracked up to be. And people were getting degrees and not really, getting no job unless you really get a specialized degree.
Right.
Like chemistry, you want to go be a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant. Unless you go get a specialized degree, there's people getting a lot of degrees and still struggling. You get an English degree, you might be able to teach, but you might not even get that job. You know what I mean?
Right.
You get a criminal justice degree, you're going to be a CO, you're going to be a cop. You don't need a degree to do those jobs. You feel me? But you're not going to go into the FBI with a criminal justice degree. I should have took Arabic. I should have took accounting. You know what I mean? So, the bad advice that I got probably caused that from, and I can't really blame them because, when I was young, I could have did more research on my own.
So, man, she's
So I
question.
take
Hold
that
on.
accountability on that.
So, what would you have got the courage to do that? Like, how would you have looked outside the box, right? Because when I was in school, we was taught go by what your counselor tell you because they're educated and they got experience in this. This profession to help you, right? So, how do you challenge what the counselor is telling you when you told to listen to what the counselor tell you?
Well, see, that's the thing. I never felt like my school, other than a handful of teachers, really cared about us that much.
Right.
I didn't go to the greatest high school. I didn't get the greatest advice from the counselor. And, the internet was around when I went to school. I could have definitely went in head and, sought out, how do I really get to the FBI? I did some preliminary stuff and some things were saying maybe criminal justice, but I learned very quickly after I got my AA that you're not going to go to FBI just with the criminal justice degree. You got to specialize in something. So, I mean, like I said, I take accountability for my stake in it. But it's nice to know that, in schools like where Tyler is going, they are a little bit more involved. They care a little bit more. Like the fact that they got a mental health counselor and a therapist on site at school,
right?
Is amazing to me. You know what I mean?
Hey, welcome back, bro.
That was something that wasn't that I found very interesting. You know what I mean?
So here's the thing. I think if I was in school now, I think I might be further along in life than I was coming through in the 80s and the 90s, right? Because there's more resources now. When we moved to Delaware from Virginia, my daughter told me they had a counselor in the school, they had a doctor's office in the school, they had a nutritionist in the school. I'm like, well, this is high school. You know what I mean? I'm paying for this as an adult outside the world, right? So now there's so much more resources in the school to where mental health should not be an issue because there's so many people you can talk to. When you talk to your peers, then you got the teacher you can talk to, the administration, and then you got the specialized people, the psychiatrists and the therapists. Like, what?
So Tyler,
Yeah.
that's at no cost to the students. So if you feeling depressed, you can go to the on-site therapist, and you do that after school, or they allow you to do that during school, like during your lunch break and stuff. How does that work?
After, during, whenever you need it.
Really?
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. So here's the thing.
I got a follow-up question. I got a question. I got a question on that, Joe, and one more follow up question for our African American students or our Black students. Uh, are they also utilizing that resource, or is we still got the stigma that Joe and I grew up with, that you're soft if you see a therapist, you soft if you got these issues, you got to man up and deal with it and yada yada yada, or do you see Black men like yourself taking advantage of those resources when you do feel sad?
See, that's the thing. The stigma does still carry, because the resource is there, but we just gotta open up and say something. Um, I will say that at Mount, we do have like the resource specialists that sort of, or like the paraeducators that are there, and that I do see a lot of young Black men taking more advantage of than say the specialists, which is good that they're still reaching out and taking advantage of a resource. But I think as far as really being comfortable with doing that, is really still that stigma does still carry.
Where do you think that stigma comes from the youth? Did you like learn, because from what Joe was saying, you got very strong background in your parents. Some of these other kids that don't want to see the therapist, even though it's on site in school, because of these stigmas, like where do you think that comes from? I know where it came from for me, but I'm just curious for people that's still in high school now, is that still like what's being preached, that you got to man up, you got to deal with it, you know what I mean? Stop B wording and everything else. Like, is that still a thing even for the youth?
Yeah, and I think that that's just sort of that, like again, that survival tactic where you gotta just be dynamic and go with what the crowd is going with, and that's sort of really where it stems from. And then just also being secure about who we are as individuals, right? And so like you'll notice like if someone is like truly comfortable with who they are and not really following anyone else and just doing themselves, and that also plays into their mindset, and if they're going to allow that stigma to carry with them. And so in finding, I think that's the biggest thing, is just in finding our own identity and who we are just as individuals, and not really just, oh, like we all Black. No, we are Black, but we're also individuals as well. And so we all have different and unique personalities, things that we like and don't like. And so I think just that general idea, because again, also, even though it is 50-50, you find comfort in your own people and you connect to that. And so to be able to have that comfort in that community, that's one of the things that you got to do, is just go along with it and you know fit in, so to speak.
So Tyler, um,
Mm.
Joe and myself, our mission is kind of like to change that narrative, like,
Hmm.
and employ young Black men like yourself to take advantage of those resources, because they ain't had that when I went to school, bro. Like,
Yeah.
if I would have got a therapist before I was 25, which was the first time I went to see one, yo, I'd be like, yo, my life will be so much different now. So the fact that you guys got these resources and it's free to use, how do we change that narrative? How do I help somebody like you, and then give you the tools to be able to help other kids, that they're going to be like, you know what, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing unmanly about going to see this mental health therapist, to go and see a psychiatrist. I want to go get the help, because our people are hurting, bro. We go through so much psychological trauma that's being passed down from our parents, our brothers and sisters, our aunts and uncles and our grandparents, and we're not really dealing with it in a healthy way. We just kind of like moving past it. And yeah, there's a lot of Black people that's a lot successful. Like, I know so many Black people that own businesses that make
Yeah.
a lot of money and stuff like that, but they got mental health issues. And they're like, yo, I'm like, why didn't you deal with this when you was younger? Well, it's always that same narrative. I was told to man up. I made it. I just dealt with it. So when you have a kid, you're like, well, I made it. And you know what I mean? I was able to be something in life. So you just got to deal with it. How do we help the youth change that narrative?
I think it's just for us as youth, we can't carry your problems. And so what I mean by that is, you know, some of us do have to go home and, take care of certain things, that others don't have to. And so, that is something, that's dealt with at home. But I think, in school especially, a place where you're trying to better yourself and, get your own education so that you don't have to deal with all these problems is where it should stop and just be let go for those, 5, 6 hours. Because I think when in carrying that into that environment, then you already going in, tensed up and not really focused on what you have to get done, but you carrying your problems that's outside. And so I think differentiating the two and making the two separate, not issues but two separate things to deal with is part of that. And it's really just like I said, isolating. And yes, you have your family and you want to be close and connected to them, but again, we have to be our own individuals and we have to find who we are and make our own path. And so you take the good and you run with it from your past, but then you leave all that bad stuff behind. And if you feel it, like if something is making you feel bad or making you question who you are or you're not really sure what it is, then that's stuff that you leave. But if it's something that
Right.
is making you work harder, is making you hungry, and then if it's making you better, then you take that and you move it forward instead of taking it all and not really processing it. And that's where utilizing the resources comes in, is going to that resource so that they can tell you, because you might not always know as an individual, because
Right.
you're gonna think you know everything,
Right.
especially when it's your own life. So going to that resource and explaining everything, and then they can literally pick out what is good, what's not, and then you sit back and you just do it, and you'll be like, okay, now I see what they talking about.
So no,
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
that's
sense.
something that's weird.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
But how do you feel we can get the youth to kind of change, to have that shift in mindset to get that help? So what can
Well,
we do that we can help like the youth, like either coming to the school and having open discussions like this, led by somebody like yourself, with somebody like me or somebody like Joe backing you, but like where they can see like, yo, Tyler's 18 and he talks to the therapist. He goes out and get the mental health. Now Tyler's doing well in school. Tyler's getting these scholarships, because he's able to focus on things, and we're all dealing with this. So how do you feel we can start to change that narrative?
And I think that's how it happens. Like you said, all it takes is one. If we have one person and that one person sets the example, someone is going to follow, and then it's just going to have a ripple effect. But it starts with breaking that ice. Even if in a room of 20, we can impact one, that that will go a long way, because then that one influences so many others, and then that is going to trickle down. But I think in general, certain people that do reach out now, they again they don't want to expose themselves to it, because they still want to hold that strong persona. But if all it takes is one to make an impact on the rest, and just reaching that one, so that it, because again, we go off of what everyone else is doing. And so it's just having that mindset to for someone to step out, and we gotta come to each other, like we're not always gonna seek it out, but if it comes to us, then we'll take it. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just going to where the help is needed, and then the rest will follow, and then they'll start to reach out and open up. And I think that's really how it works, is that bringing it to each other, and just being upfront and coming to each other. I think that's really how it starts, and then it's gonna have that ripple effect.
So I
so
think like, oh, go ahead, Joe.
so I would say real quick, we have a couple of people that's followers that are educators, and then a couple
Mm,
of counselors as well as watching the show right now. If y'all could call in at 302-584-3287, we'd like to hear y'all perspective as well on how we can help people like Tyler and the rest of the youth break that narrative that, say you're not a sucker if you go see a therapist, and you're not weak to see a therapist. Like, how can we retrain that thought and that process in their minds in the school system? So if y'all could just call in real quick, we'd like to talk with y'all as well as we're going with the show. But go ahead, Mel. You had a great question. I can see it right on your forehead.
No, I was gonna say, like, I feel like the youth would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I do have some nieces and nephews and younger cousins. I feel like the youth would be interested in a open discussion type thing if it's done in the right scenario. So, for example, Joe and I went to a barbershop to have a men's talk. Now, there was only one juvenile there that spoke, but like that environment, and these are all people like Joe age, where they're very strong in that. Nah, you got to deal with it, man up, yada, 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 stuff that was taught to me as well. And just to hear the men share their stories openly, everybody sharing similar stories about the same stuff that they're dealing with, marriage issues, child raising issues, financial issues. All of us as Black men, we're dealing with so many different things, and it has such a good positive energy in there where people are like, hey man, we should connect afterwards and stuff like that. So do you see like us coming to a school with somebody like yourself that's so positive, that wants to help people, that can have a similar impact with the youth, where we get together and we might do something like bowling, or we might do something like just go to a nice restaurant and have a meal, but be able to have these open discussions and see why people aren't taking advantage of the free services they provided, and then also encouraging them like, look, you guys can progress so much more in life if you have a level head. Because that's really a step up, man. Like that level head, like if you can keep that, you can focus on your grades, you can, focus on what you're doing. Like, do you see like us like creating a similar type environment as we had in the barbershop a few weeks ago, that the youth will buy into that?
Yeah, and I definitely think they will, because if you go into a classroom, depending on the classroom and like who's in there, not everyone is going to open up because they know who's in there, and then they connect it to XYZ, and then the whole school is going to know. So I think taking it to, even if it's just a different room in the school, but like you said, somewhere outside, I think that really, setting matters. And I think with that, a different setting, people are more open, and I definitely do agree with that, because like the barbershop, we talk about everything all the time in there. And so I think, that's a great place, because
excuse me 1 second, Tyler. Thank you for calling the As a Black Man podcast. This is Mel.
Hi Mel, this is Stacy.
Hey Stacy, how you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you so much.
Great. I am loving the topic today. I am a mental health professional, and I want to say hello to you, Mel, Joe, and Tyler.
Hello.
Joe is my cousin. And it's interesting to know, it's interesting because a lot of youth, which I do work with youth, I conduct mental health evaluations. And what I've noticed that from a lot of youth and young men is that it's hard to trust. Trust is like the number one fight against men going for therapy, seeking mentorship. And it's not because of them, it's because of the professionals. In the school system, they typically hire people based on, of course, you have a set salary range. So even if you give the best quality care, a lot of times professionals will not just be accepting of that particular salary range.
Gotcha.
So you may have someone who's a beginner therapist who comes in. They could either work as a contractor from another company. Typically they don't hire, they may have a school psychologist, but it's very rare because it's not in the budget to bring a school psychologist on. However, when you bring a third-party therapist on, they may only come once a week. They're dealing with multiple children who need their attention. You only can fit for so many, within one day or within 1 week. So which means is that there's no consistency.
Gotcha.
So if you're meeting with someone once a week, if you're a therapist or a mental health professional that's in the school system or that's at, let's say, another entity where you're there as a contractor, if you're only there once a week or even twice a week at the most, and you have 60 kids or more who need your attention, there's no way that you can be consistent with at least that one person.
Correct.
So then it becomes, I'm seeing a new person every other week. When I need them, they are not there.
Gotcha.
So it kind of makes it gives like, okay, if I can't trust that you're going to be available, then I don't want to do it. Now inside the clinician's office, now you're talking about relationship building. Is this person, am I a male who's meeting with another male? Or am I a male meeting with someone of a different ethnical background? Or another, a female therapist? That all plays a part. Now, when I see men in my office, I do kind of give that, I keep myself up to date with everything going on, whether it's a male or female, and regardless of sexuality, because I see a lot of men and women who actually battle with that as well.
Right.
So us as mental health professionals, we have to be on a level of each individual person. And I'm able to connect with people because of that.
Right.
And for men, because they internalize a lot, whether or not, it's okay for me to expose what I'm feeling to someone I don't know.
Right.
Whether or not they will understand me, whether or not if I'm thinking about suicidal ideation, are they going to report me? These are the things that actually go on. It makes a person not want to continue on with any therapeutic services.
Right. So I got a follow-up question. As far as like the youth is concerned, like, do you see like Black kids still have those same issues with talking to a therapist that me and Joe were brought up with? That you got to man up and all this other stuff. I tell you, when I started talking to a therapist, it was the best decision I ever made. I'd rather tell the therapist I was molested than tell Joe. No offense, Joe knows, but like, the therapist don't know me, so she was able to give me sound advice, and that's why I'm comfortable with being able to talk about this stuff now, because I wouldn't have been talking about this 10 years ago. So it's like, the stuff that I've dealt with is only in me getting to the space that I am now, even with everything I'm dealing with now, it's only because I've learned the skills with how to deal with things that I'm going through. So like, how do we work with Tyler to get the youth to buy in to getting over that narrative about mental health?
Well, I have a slogan. Mental health is greater than or equal to physical health, right? And a lot of people don't realize that. They think that mental health is totally separate, totally handled in a different arena. And that's not the case. If we could get youth to understand that one is just as equal as the other, because your mental health does affect your physical health.
Yeah, it does.
In many aspects, whether it's diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, migraines. People suffer with migraines,
fatigue,
seizures, all of it. Anxiety. So it's just getting youth to understand that one can't go without the other. So we start by getting them to know that one can't go without the other. That's a tiny step in recognizing that it's an importance. Right now, it's not seen as an importance because we can keep it in. Our children can internalize it. Now, as far as like how we grew up, it's a cultural thing.
Right.
You know, in African American culture, we did not just go to therapy. We would barely even go to the pastor.
Right.
You know. So now we're living in a time where even the pastor, even the therapist is seeing a therapist.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, you ain't lying there.
Yeah.
So if your therapist and your pastor is not right, on the right track, I'm not saying right as in like they're cuckoo. If they're not right, if they're not progressing in a way that they can help someone else, it starts from there.
Right.
So we can get it out there for the youth to know that mental health is important. But who are they going to trust? It goes back to who are they going to trust? Because if you're not going through the same thing, and this is what I hear a lot, well, they're not going through the same thing I'm going through, so how do you want to understand me?
Right. And that was hard for me to originally deal with because I didn't have a Black therapist. I do now. And I couldn't even find a Black male therapist. That's like a unicorn in this field here. So I couldn't even find one of them. We do know one now. I'm just not going to leave my therapist that I currently have because we have a good relationship. But I do know one. So he's the first one that I met. We met him at the barbershop. Do you feel like the kids can't relate because there's people that, you know, do not look like them? Because I didn't feel as comfortable with the non-Black therapist as I do with my Black therapist that I have now. Do you feel like that's a part of the problem? There's not enough Black therapists, and there's certainly not enough Black male therapists.
That is completely, like, that's the number one. I wouldn't even say that's the number one issue. It can kind of rate at the top of the list. And in August, because I'm a American Psychological Association affiliate, so I went to a convention in Chicago in August, and you have clinicians and mental health professionals and counselors from all over the world, because it is it's the biggest psychological conference. And when you get there, you don't see a lot of Black therapists or, you know, clinicians, professionals there. It's like 1 out of 100. 1 out of 200. And you're talking about a convention with hundreds of professionals there.
So here's the other thing.
You know, so also, when you can't relate to someone, how can you feel comfortable with them giving me the best information I need to know? How can you help me with coping skills if you can't relate to me as a Black man?
So Joe has a follow-up question. Go ahead, Joe.
So the other thing, I think the issue is that we have lack of Black males in the school system, right?
Yeah, he said another issue is we got a lack of Black males in the school system as far as teachers. And go ahead.
And administrators.
And he's saying that, like, it kind of goes all the way down. Like, I went to a school a couple of months ago now, and we had a lot of Black men that went in there from my volunteer organization, Black professional men, and we taught kids how to tie a tie, and we all came in and we were just very nice, and the kids really enjoyed that. Like, Black men showing them how to tie a tie. Like, it's been like some of the littlest stuff that can have an impact on our youth. And like, what is your thoughts? Like, you think like the whole system is kind of like leading for that lack of comfortability? You don't got no Black male teachers. You barely got Black female teachers. You ain't got no Black administration. You got some Black principals. Like, we know an excellent principal in Delaware. He's a beast. You know, he was on the news. What's his name? Your Kappa brother?
Brother Newton, Terrence Newton.
Yeah, Brother Newton. So he was the first Black principal that I met. You know what I mean? But him and Principal Rowland that died in Delaware, but he passed away. But those are the only two that I've ever seen. So do you think like that as a whole is leading to the lack of our youth being comfortable with talking to therapists?
Hello?
That plays a part.
No, listen to your text message.
If you're in school for 6 hours out the day,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a second home.
Right.
So if you're subjected to females for 6 hours out the day, who are you able to talk to? Who can actually relate to you as a male? And
Right.
a lot of my youth that come in, they actually act out in school. They act out at home because when they get home, they don't have many males in the household that can relate to them. So you're spending 6 hours in one place that don't have any, or have maybe one, but they have to tend to 100 other students, right? So if I'm only there to work my hours and to leave, there's no room for any mentorship. And I know one of the issues is that a lot of teachers feel like they're not getting paid what they should. So why should I do anything extra? I just want to go in, get my day done, and go home.
Right.
If there were more men in the school system, more principals, and I actually met one. I met one a few weeks ago. He's now retired out of the school system because it impacted his mental health.
Right.
So he had to retire. He had to retire out early because he felt like he was the only one fighting for these males, helping them. But the other staff did not, they didn't value that. So then I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to get a follow-up question to that. So my wife is a teacher. She teaches at Scotts Branch. She's the art teacher. And they have like equity meetings and all this other stuff. You know, you got a lot of teachers that's not from a urban environment. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got a lot of people that's out of touch with anything that these kids are going through, and they have no idea what these kids are going through. And it's kind of like I wanted to get Tyler's take on that, like coming up in school with teachers that really can't relate to you and has no idea about when I was a cop with Baltimore City, like most of the people, they live in York, PA, coming to Baltimore City, and they already coming with a stigma on black men.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And they don't know anything about them, but they just going by what they heard and stuff like that. So like this not having people that understand you, like Tyler, how did that make the you feel like when you were growing up and you didn't have teachers you could relate to?
It was difficult, but then also in that's sort of how I found myself, but that's unique because like for me, even now in my school, I think there's one black male teacher at my school.
Wow.
And then administration is diverse, and then counselors as well. But just like off the top of my head, I think it is one black male teacher at my school that I can recall right now, and I think it is. But for me, like having teachers not being able to relate, it frustrated me, in class. And then a lot of that translated to me, feeling like an outcast, and then like I was being lied to. So then like through that, I sat down and it was like, well, yeah, I'm doing all this work and everything, but something just doesn't feel right. And so for me, that's when I started to go into topics that they wouldn't really touch in school, like, our Black history. And from that, I was like, wow, I really am being lied to. And so, not getting that full picture and that whole story, that is sort of how I came to realize things and be who I am today. Not saying that's right and that it works for everyone, but that's how it worked out for me. And so, seeing just overall in general in schools, it does have an effect because I know, so many young Black men have that same frustration. learning about things that aren't relatable to them. You're not being told your whole history, throughout the year, let alone even if it is Black History Month. But not being told that, and then being told to be this way, and then also not seeing a diversity in the staff and in the people that are teaching you is frustrating, just because you're thinking something and then they're thinking something else, and it's just a disconnect. And so there's that lack of connection, it leads to a frustration, and that translates different for everyone. And that's just how it translated for me, that frustration. But I think that's the main effect that it has, is you being frustrated and in this place, and then even in friendships, not let alone being able to trust adults, but then you can't even trust like your peers, just because you don't know if they'll relate to you, or that person, so then that word might get out just about you.
Right. So Stacy, you still there?
Yeah.
It is Stacy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to jack your name up on live, so I gotta edit that part out. All right, Stacy. So what Tyler was saying is that the young Black men are frustrated. To paraphrase his word, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're frustrated that they don't have teachers that they can relate to. They don't get to learn their own history. They feel like they're learning things in school, and I felt the same exact way, Tyler. So I started taking Black American Studies.
Right.
And when I went to University of Delaware, my Black American Studies course was taught by a white man. Now he kept it real, but I'm like, I can't even get a Black American Studies. This is ridiculous. I was dumbfounded, like, this is crazy. So I feel what Tyler is saying. So basically he's saying that young Black men is frustrated. There's no teachers, there's no counselors, there's no principals that look like them, that can relate to them, that's going to keep it real with them, that's going to hold them accountable to the capacity that they need. So it kind of sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't encourage young Black men to want to work as hard as they could be, because they don't see the value in it, because it doesn't feel like it's for them. Is that accurate, Tyler, before I give that to Stacy?
Yeah, and like I said, for me, it did encourage me to go and step out, and but that shouldn't be the case, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like we shouldn't have to step out just to learn, the basics,
right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like the basics outside of, MLK and slavery and emancipation. You know what I mean?
That's all they teach.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying, is that frustration that we shouldn't have to be able to or we shouldn't have to go out just to get what should be the basics covered. And like you said, I can relate, because we have, a Black Studies course at our school, but the history teacher, head of the department, is white, and so we, like you said, you can't even get a Black Studies teacher.
Right.
But I think that's really where the frustration comes, is like it's not it's a deterrent when you have to go outside just to get the basics, and you can't even go out just to build off of what they teach. You have to get the basics on your own, and then build off of that outside of school on your own again.
So Stacy, what is your thoughts on that? Like the fact that we're not encouraging our young Black men to really not care about school, because so many of us is graduating, so many of us is getting degrees, so many of us is getting good jobs, but we don't have that same buy-in, because like we don't feel like that. I felt that way in school. I didn't feel like the school was for me. I didn't feel like what I was learning was benefiting me. You know what I mean? So what is your take on what he's saying about not having that environment around you with teachers, principals, and counselors and staff that you can relate to?
So we can't really control the staff, right? But what we can do is, in the community, we can bring those resources to the schools. And I say that because I have a girls program that I'll be launching in September.
Okay.
And I'm doing the same thing. Because the information is not available, the resources are not available in the school system. I can't control the school system. I can't tell them who to hire, who to bring in, the changes that need to be made, because that goes to each individual city, county, the whole chain that way. But only thing I can do is I can go in and take my business into the schools. So that's what I'm doing with my business. I'm actually going into the schools. I'm actually getting this information out there because I want to make that resource available. If I can't rely on the schools to help these girls, and in your case, it will be the males. Right. It would be nice to have the same concept going on, is that we can get someone that can go into the schools, share the information with the schools that I am here. Right. So that's what I'm doing with the girls. I'm actually going into the schools. I'm getting this service out there. So come September, they will have a resource to go take. Now, whether or not they take part, you have families who don't want to be dedicated. That's another thing. You don't have families encouraging their child to stay consistent with someone, a mentor. They just see that, I don't need no one to tell me how to raise my child or what's the best interest for my child. That's a big struggle in itself with what's in our culture, is that nobody else is going to tell me how to raise my child, or it makes them feel like they're not suitable as a parent because they have to rely on someone else. So it's a lot that just go on with it, but it will be good for educators, whether it's mental health or just an education period, to be able to step up and be a providing source for these men, because we can't change what goes on in the school system. I went to an HBCU, so for me, I was able to get what I did not learn in high school or elementary or middle school. It took me to get to college to be like, oh my goodness, I just see things totally different. Yep. I'm educated in a whole different way. The perspective is different. So only thing I would suggest is that getting outside resources to reach in to the school system. Right.
One of my thoughts and one of my missions that I'm trying to get accomplished here is, one, we want to encourage the youth to seek mental health therapy. Also want to encourage the youth to look, especially young Black males, because you can make a really good lucrative career as a therapist. Encourage young Black males to go to college for that. Encourage young Black males, to be those pillars to go back and once we do get to the levels, like you said, we as adults, like I'm 30, Joe is 40 something, we go in these schools and teach them these life skills because they didn't teach us. Like, I used to feel like high school was such a waste of time. Like, why are you not teaching us how to fill out a resume? Why are you not teaching me how to apply for a job? Why are you not teaching me how to handle money? I'm 30 years old, and it took me until I was 28 to really get a grip on finances and knowing about money.
Here's another thing too. They don't teach you about credit.
They don't teach you about credit.
Nope.
They don't teach you about that. When I took my Series 6, I'm Series 6 certified, which means, I can help people with mutual funds and stuff. I'm currently not under a company doing that. But I was watching the training module, and the lady on there was like, instead of buying my kids Christmas presents, I buy them stocks in Pixar. I've been doing that for 18 years. And it just blew my mind. Like, there's so much financial knowledge out here where you could be setting your kid up. Great. You can have your kid have a credit card. They can have 700 credit score, 800 credit score, plus the stocks. Now they don't have this big school debt. There's so many secrets that are being withheld from us, and they ain't teaching us in school. So that's like one of my missions. Like, how do we, like, if they can't get it in school, how are we going to give the youth the tools they need to be successful? First of all, like, we need to be telling the youth, like, the most people that's cleaning up out here and making money be them HVAC plumbers and electricians. Right. You know what I mean? You be a journeyman HVAC, they paying $40,000 an hour. You know what I mean? So there's so many ways that we can tell these youth there's so much ways to make money, but they don't have these resources and they don't care about these kids. So like, that's it. Like encouraging kids to be therapists, encouraging kids to give back, encouraging men like myself to go back in these schools and give those tools. Like, how do we get that going? Joe, I'll start with you since you got connections with schools, and then we'll work on over to Tyler.
Well, real quick, Tyler has to go to work here soon, so we're gonna come loose soon. But okay. me being a teacher as well, and I'm in a group on Facebook where there's over 2,000 African American educators and administrators on there, and that's the current topic we have right now. How do we get more males into the school system on any level, whether it's a counselor, anything like that? When I was growing up, only black male I saw was a football coach and a basketball coach. You know what I mean? So now to change that dynamic is like, now we need more kids to say, you know, I'm gonna be a teacher to give back as well, because that's what I was lacking when I was growing up. You know, right. When they get that mindset right there, if they can come on and do that, that's great. You know what I mean? But real quick, Tyler, anything you want to say before you leave us?
I agree with you 100% because, you know, a lot of the influence, you know, that we get is from, you know, those coaches, which isn't a bad thing. But then you see that and then you get in this mindset that, yeah, you know, I'm gonna go and do this, you know, for myself, you know, and it's more than that. It's seeing that this person impacted you and, you know, made you who you are. So, you know, it should be important to invest and, you know, give back and make that same contribution to someone else, because then that's ultimately how this is going to be eradicated. And then, you know, the future generations can go on and say, you know, I can do this for myself because I don't have to really necessarily go back, you know, because we don't have this issue anymore. But I think, you know, again, having that foresight that it's not really about one, it's about all of us, you know, and then that is something small like that, you know, just being there, you know, in that profession is going to go a long way, you know, in giving back and uplifting, you know, someone else. And ultimately, it's a lot of connections in there, you know, like you said, because, and I think that's another thing that's not really realized is, you know, the connections that can come about from a career, you know, in education, really, and that you can, you know, go on and do what you want to do still, but that it is lucrative and that you get that feeling of giving back, and also is more than, you know, basically it's just it's a bigger picture to it, you know, in short, in what you're saying and agreeing with you.
Tyler, man, you're wise beyond your years, bro. Like, one of our viewers commented, Miss Belinda Talton. She said, "I love the way this young man articulates, man. She couldn't be more spot on, bro. Keep being you, and we are going to connect because I want to get with you, and we want to start helping the youth start changing this narrative, man. So we're definitely going to talk with you. You're what we need, bro. You know what I mean? You what we need, and I just met you, bro, but I'm proud of you, and I'm so happy." Like to see somebody like you, bro, being positive, that's out here that want to make a difference, bro. Like, you don't understand. Like, we need you, man. All right, yeah. I mean that, bro. We love you, bro. Enjoy your day at work. We're gonna get the last thoughts on Stacy, and we're gonna close out. But
change that hat too, man. Gotta be Michigan, bro. Gotta be Michigan.
We was doing good.
Go, baby. Go Blue. Go. Let's go. You double messing up.
So, Stacy, final thoughts on what I was saying, starting some programs we could take into the schools, teaching them about resumes, teaching them about trade schools, teaching them about how to get a job, showing them Black men care by having Black men that are successful coming into these schools. How do we get these programs started? And how can me and Joe help?
Actually, I would like to work with Tyler because like my program, for my girls' programs, I actually work with youth. I actually work with males and females. Mm-hmm. However, for my specifically for my girls' program, I'm following that same thing. I'm teaching. They will be learning how to complete resumes and how to conduct interviews, communication skills, self-regulation skills, things of that nature. So I'll be doing that with the girls. However, I would love to work with Tyler because he is trying to get in and advocate for men, for the youth. I would love to work with him to be able to help him get going with that. I have a complete curriculum available that I can share with him that he can actually use that as a tool to, if he wants to get started with his own services for that. Because
So
like I said, I can't relate to men
Right.
when it comes down to those tools. But I'm doing the same thing with the girls. I'm doing the same exact thing with the girls because they're lacking in certain areas as well.
That's awesome, Stacey. And we're definitely going to connect because I'm with it and I'm ready to go. I would love to help out the youth and get those programs started. Actually, a volunteer organization that I'm a part of, Black Professional Men, they do stuff like that as well. So we will definitely connect with you. Joe, you had something that you was about to say?
Two things. One of our we had a comment from Lainey Stanley. She said schools should be teaching you life skills. So it's family and friends who need to be stepping up to teach these young people this. And as right now, I see a lot of schools worrying about test scores.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not worried about academics. They're worried about test scores so they get money coming in. The other thing, tell Stacey, like, whenever she's ready, I'm here and you there. You know what I mean? You already in Baltimore. I just come down there. And also, I would talk to Tyler's dad to see if we get permission to bring him down to Baltimore, Stacey, because, he's still a young man.
Right.
But, I know his dad very well. And whenever you're ready for him, just let me know and I'll make it happen.
All right. Stacey, thank you so much for calling in. You were a delight. Let us know how we can contact you for our viewers that are looking for a therapist.
Okay. So I'm not doing therapy work. I'm doing mentoring and consulting. Therapy is just a little bit more different. I do it at the office, but as far as my business itself, I don't offer clinical therapy. I offer life coaching, things like that. So,
okay, that's fine. How can we contact you?
I'm going to actually send you my email address. And my website is Express Me. So it's XPRESS-ME.weebly.com. But I'll send over my information. I'll actually post it so that way you can see it.
All right, that sounds good.
Information.
Thank you so much for coming in. I've been calling in. It was a delight. You provided a lot of great insight, and we're so thankful that we got people like you in the community that care about people enough to do what you do. So thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cuzzo.
Wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. So as we close out, man, like this was a phenomenal show. That's why we went over time a little bit. I was excited to hear what Tyler said, man. He really does articulate extremely well. This is a young brother that's leaps and bounds ahead mentally than I was when I was 18. So, like we always say, man, it's time as Black men that we stand our ground. We speak our truth. We go after what we want, regardless of the pain we've been through. We quit for no one and inspire others to be themselves, to become greater. We owe it to ourselves as Black men. Love you guys. Love you.
Hey, each one. Love y'all.
All right.